What's going on? Welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Fellas podcast. Recording on Monday, October 10th, right before Monday Night Football. I'm going to bring you all the latest and greatest reports from Sunday's action in Week 5. I am joined by not only one of my co-hosts, but both co-hosts Cameron and Tyler are back with me tonight.
Yes,
Tell us how we doing.
Doing pretty good. Been enjoying the Florida sun lately. Had a couple beach days this week. So
Tyler, how are you doing? I don't want to hear about the warm state of Florida. It's we're in Minnesota.
I'm good, but when some people just decide to throw goose eggs on the stat line and they're supposed to go over on their total, I'm great. I'm just fantastic. Hey, I got a new mattress. Hey. That's all.
Yeah, that's better than T. Higgins' performance last night. I put up as many fantasy points as T. Higgins. All three of us are here tonight. Make sure you're following us on Twitter, FFFellas, the FFFellas on Instagram, Fantasy Football Fellas on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. I'm at Lucas Wenzel, Camlaw317, Tyler_Plath on Twitter. And hey, if you want to join a community full of league winners, make sure you head down over to our chalkboard. We are giving out start-sit advice. We are giving out waiver advice. We are giving out player props every week. We're giving you all sorts of league-winning tips. Make sure you head over to our chalkboard. That's down in the description of the audio podcast or YouTube video you are watching right now. All right, we got a full slate today, gentlemen. Week 5 in the books. Going to recap all of Sunday's action. But before we dive into any of that, before we cover any news, there are some great news pieces in here today, and I am so excited to celebrate during the news segment. We first need to revisit Overreaction Monday. What is the biggest overreaction from Week 5 of fantasy football that you have seen out there that managers need to relax about?
Mine is that the Packers RBs are bust, and I understand they have been disappointing a couple weeks this year. They both had one big boom game where they scored 20-plus points, and the rest have been lackluster, to say the best. But if this team wants to win, it's going to come on the backs of those two running backs. They're going to score more touchdowns, and we kind of saw that this week with Dalvin Cook. Players who are getting carries, players who are getting touches, score touchdowns. Opportunities lead to touchdowns, especially for these two. They see a lot of opportunities in the red zone. It just hasn't resulted in touchdowns in the last couple of weeks. Don't overreact on the Packers running backs. In fact, I would buy low on them, right? This week was just weird because the Packers just kind of gave up in the second half. They got off to a big lead, and then all of a sudden they didn't have a game plan. It was like, oh, we're up by 3 touchdowns. I wonder what we do. Oh, let's just give the lead back. And so I would not panic on the Packers running backs. In fact, I would probably go try and acquire them moving forward.
I agree. Look, the Packers are just infuriating from Sunday. Like, I can't believe they lost that. They had no reason to lose that football game, yet they did. I agree. I'm a buyer on Packers running backs right now. Tyler, what do you say about the biggest overreaction from Week 5?
I hate to bring up the topic of your dynasty team, Lucas, just continuing to pick up injuries after injuries after injuries.
Pray for me. We said this on the pod last week. My dynasty team just keeps taking hit after hit after hit. I should just name my dynasty roster, and you need to be terrified of your players getting hurt, because this is my 5th injury this year. 2nd year in a row, I cannot keep a healthy roster. Anyways, go ahead. Just get it out of the way so I can just get my misery out of the way.
Rashad Penny was another player that went down for the rest of the year. And in his place comes Kenneth Walker. There are so many people out there that are saying that Kenneth Walker is a top 15 running back rest of the year, a league winner that you need to go trade for. And I'm here to tell you, just whoa. Okay, whoa. Yes, Kenneth Walker coming out of the draft was one of the more dynamic rushers, because that's all he did was just run the ball, versus Breece Hall, who did it all. But the stats that people are using to talk about Kenneth Walker are breakaway rate. How do you judge that? He had one breakaway. He had a 63-yard touchdown. That doesn't happen every carry. Okay? It's those kind of stats. They sound great. His elusiveness rating or something like that. PFF ranks his elusiveness very highly. I would agree. But Javonte Williams last year led the league in broken tackles because of his elusiveness. And where did he finish? Closer to 20 than he did to 10. Okay. Not to say, and I'm not saying that Kenneth Walker is going to be bad, but to go out and say top 15 league winner, it is very, very early. The Seahawks are hot. They will come back down to earth a little bit. Okay. Yep. As good as Geno Smith has been playing, it's Geno Smith. Okay. So again, just pump the brakes a little bit. Kenneth Walker will be a very, very good asset to have on your team. But do not put the expectation of top 15 or a league winner on him, because I'm not sure he's that kind of player.
He does have a nice stretch of matchups coming up. Gets Arizona next week, the Chargers in week 7, Giants week 8, Cardinals again in week 9. Runs into Tampa week 10, but then gets Vegas, the Rams. You're scared of the Rams. Carolina, San Francisco. It starts to toughen up after the bye, but I mean, nice stretch of 4 games here coming up. But yeah, I think top 15 is a stretch for an offense that's had to pass to stay in games more than they've had to run. And I get Rashad Penny had his big game against the Lions. You want to know who else has had big games against the Lions? Literally everybody they play. Like there's nothing new there. So yeah, I agree. I think top 15 is a stretch for Ken Walker. I think we need to relax and pump the brakes there. Unfortunately, I shouldn't say unfortunately, because I love this next player. I love this player with my whole heart. He was on my jersey list. Gabe Davis, baby. He's back. I'm not sold. I'm really not sold. Maybe it's something about the 57 yards per reception this past week. Maybe it's something about it's 100% sustainable. Maybe it's 2 touchdowns on 3 receptions that I'm just totally sold on. This is all sarcasm. Lowest snap count in the season. Only played 84% of snaps on Sunday. Still only he had 6 targets on those 84 snaps, or 84% of snaps, which is a good number. Six targets ties the season high. But I'm looking at 171 yards on 3 receptions, and 2 of those going for 50-plus yard touchdowns. One of those being the near distance of the field. I'm not sold that's sustainable. Nothing about Gabe Davis's outside of the mere yardage and touchdowns. Nothing about his line tells me he's back. He's full steam ahead. This team was down wide receivers this week. No Isaiah McKenzie, no Jamison Crowder. Khalil Shakir had a nice week too. And oh, by the way, they play the Pittsburgh Steelers, who they're supposed to destroy, right? They're supposed to take care of business there. Let's throw the rule, okay? He does have a nice schedule coming up. Kansas City, Green Bay, the Jets, Minnesota, Cleveland, Detroit. I like all those matchups, but even in favorable matchups with Miami and Baltimore, it's 6.7, 2.3. 3 receptions for 50 yards of reception. I'm sorry, that's not sustainable. We need to pump the brakes. I'm not convinced Gabe Davis is 100% back yet.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Gabe Davis to me kind of feels like CEH, where
this week, yes. Yeah.
Well, for me, it's just the fact that if there's any team that he could sustain something close to this, it would be the Bills.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to lean on that rest of the season, right? I'm not going to bank on 3 catches for 194 or whatever, 173 yards and 3 touchdowns, like you were saying. It's just, it feels like, yes, there will be some great weeks going for Gabe Davis, just because Josh Allen can take the top off on every single play.
Yep.
But if you're going to rely on that for the rest of your season, then you're going to be in trouble some weeks.
Yeah, if Gabe Davis is your wide receiver too, I'm looking to sell high. I'm looking to go cash in. Go get Jamar Chase. People are worried about Jamar Chase. That's another overreaction I've seen. They're panicked on Jamar Chase.
Yep.
The guy had 12 fantasy points still last night. I know he hasn't been he hasn't been top 5 like you drafted him to be, but let's not pretend that Jamar Chase has been piss poor. Mm-hmm. He hasn't been piss poor. It's just not 20 a week like we were all expecting. Yep. And that can still come. So especially with some news and notes we're going to cover here. But that was Overreaction Monday. Let's dive into the news from Sunday's action now. Brought to you by our friends over at Sleeper. the number one fantasy football platform in the world. It is where we pretty much play all of our fantasy leagues. My miserable dynasty team is over on Sleeper. If you want to join over 4 million people on the fastest growing fantasy platform in the world, you can check the link in the description of the audio podcast or YouTube video you are watching. Let's dive into the news. Fellas, let's turn on the party music. Matt Rule. He's out, baby.
Let's go.
I never want to celebrate a coach getting fired, but this was like
A season overdue.
it was
This
one,
three
yeah.
seasons
This
overdue. Like
this
he
was
shouldn't have been
overdue.
hired in the first place.
This was overdue. Matt Rule officially canned by the Carolina Panthers. DJ Moore managers are rejoicing. Christian McCaffrey's still been pretty good. So if you're a Christian McCaffrey manager, I mean, you're still feeling pretty all right. But mostly DJ Moore managers, you're feeling pretty good about yourself right now because it can only go up from here.
Hopefully.
Good caveat. Good caveat. Matt Rule officially gets the bin, but also Baker Mayfield is going to miss a couple weeks with an ankle injury. PJ Walker is going to step in the meantime. So maybe if you're a DJ Moore manager, you're not rejoicing as much as you thought you would be right now. You got that news. And then it literally, what was it? Not even 2 hours afterwards, we get this news on Baker Mayfield.
Oh, it's just like, yeah, Matt Rule's gone. I mean, he wasn't the play caller, but, like, head coach sets the culture of how the game's going to go. And then he's got PJ Walker throwing them the ball. To be fair, PJ Walker was 2-0 last year in his 2 starts. But, man, I do not want to bank on a comeback with a PJ Walker and then a Baker Mayfield coming off an ankle injury. It's just, I just feel bad.
Moore? What does that make DJ Moore? Is he like a sell high? Is he just like a you have to hold tight? Is he just like a get rid of him while you can? Is it like what is? There's too many conflicting things going on for his value right now.
I think DJ Moore. Ty just sent me a trade offer for DJ Moore. I know it. I just saw the notification come up. I don't even have to look at it. I know that's exactly what he said. But gosh, you suck. It depends on the manager, right? It depends on. If you have somebody who is still like, ooh, DJ Moore, I love the talent, then yeah, you sell it to him. But if you don't have anybody like that, then you got to hold on to him. Because if people aren't in love, enamored with the talent that is DJ Moore, he's been worthless this year as far as fantasy goes.
Yeah, he really has, even with volume. Like no more than 12 fantasy points this year. I believe his highest week is like 11. That's worrisome. Let's move on. We'll get all the Panthers news out of the way right away. Rashad Penny, broken fibula. His season is over. Ty mentioned this earlier. Ken Walker will take over as the lead back in Seattle. I think I'm a little more optimistic than you sounded, Ty. I agree. Top 15 is a stretch, but like I'm more optimistic on Ken Walker going forward because they're no longer stealing touches from each other, right? I know Rashad Penny was getting the bulk, but like what's going to happen is all of Ken Walker's work is going to get split between DJ Dallas and Travis Homer. It's not all just going to go to DJ Dallas, and Ken Walker is going to get a bulk of the carries, and anything left over is going to be split anyways. So I like Ken Walker going forward. I think he's going to be too expensive for you to go out and trade right now. You need to find a manager who's like super pessimistic about the Seattle Seahawks, but they haven't given you a reason to be pessimistic as of the last 2 games. So I mean, look, Rashad Penny's season is over. Ken Walker, I think he's startable some weeks. He's going to be a matchup play though.
Yeah.
Are you looking over this trade now? Do you need to give an update, Cameron?
I already declined it. It was Gabe Davis for DJ Moore straight up.
I'm selling high and buying low. Exactly what a fantasy manager should do.
That's the advice we just gave, is it not? Sell high on Gabe Davis. Go out and get DJ Moore for a reasonable price.
I've paid up for like 2 trades in my entire life, Ty. My entire trade is based around buying low. That's all I do.
Ty, what were you going to say about Ken Walker, though?
I came in a little more pessimistic than, I mean, you explain my thoughts, but I had to be a little more pessimistic to get the pendulum to swing just a little bit back because it is so far one side. But I totally agree with everything you said. Like, he will be good. He will be good. I'm just saying, again, top 15, sure, some weeks, but an overall finish, top 15 league winner.
Yeah.
Wait.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, and you have to give the extremist other side to get that point across. I 100% agree.
Yeah, we saw Rashad Penny already put up a week under 5 points. I think that's definitely in the realm of outcomes for Ken Walker moving forward. My worry is this might be the last we see of Rashad Penny as a starter anywhere. And maybe, I mean, he's 27 next year, coming off of his like 4th season-ending injury. It's just, I
It's
just
devastating.
don't know. I don't know if we're ever going to see the same. Like, I think that little glimpse we got was all we're going to really get from Rashad Penny.
Which is unfortunate because there were so many big things in store potentially this year.
Mm-hmm.
First, he gets Ken Walker, has a great game. He reminds us of that explosiveness against Detroit, and then season-ending injury. I mean, it's just heartbreaking. It's just heartbreaking for Rashad Penny. I want to loop back to the Carolina Panthers. I should have roped this one in with the Matt Rule and Baker Mayfield news, but also several teams have called the Panthers about DJ Moore. Do we have any, like, has that been expanded at all since the report of like where the Panthers are at, what teams are calling, like the odds of like how are they actually feeling? Are they actually shopping DJ Moore or teams just calling? Do we have any clarity on that? That just kind of seemed like a blanket report that I was like, I'm sure teams call about a lot of guys.
Yeah.
And like on a struggling team like the Panthers, of course they're going to call about DJ Moore. Like,
I don't know why the Panthers would trade him at this point.
I have no reason to.
Because he's 25 right now, and all you're going to do is trade him away, and then you're going to have to go out and get another young wide receiver. You're probably going to get a first from him, and then you're going to use that first on a wide receiver. So it's just like, I don't really see a benefit for them trading him.
I think the reason why it made news today that teams would call the Panthers about certain players. Traditionally, teams just think that when one coaching regime ends, it's the sign of a rebuild. And I think Carolina is one of the very few teams that are literally in a limbo right now, where they have no window, right? So they can continue to build what they have right now, or they can tear it all down. But tearing it all down doesn't really make a whole lot of sense because like it's just taking a step back versus like 5 steps back for some rebuilds, like Chicago's rebuild. But the thing is, Carolina only has 4 draft picks this year. It's like 1st, 2nd, a 5th, and a 6th, or 4th and a 5th, or something. So that's, I mean, and we just saw Deion Jones get traded from Atlanta to Cleveland yesterday. So I think that kind of played a part in it of everyone kind of, they're going to cut salary. Not necessarily. They don't necessarily have to. Yep. Sure, you can give them a call and stuff, but I think it's just being a Monday. Mondays are also just not really great news days. It's really slow, but it's just worth knowing and understanding the game of just like teams will call because they think when a coach gets fired, it's the end and it's a rebuild.
For sure.
Like Cameron said earlier, I think Matt Rule was a little overdue, but opinions. Chris Olave, Pat Freiermuth, and Teddy Bridgewater all left Sunday's matchups with concussions. Something to keep tabs on in the coming weeks here, especially as the NFLPA is locking down on concussion protocol.
Are we sure Brady didn't leave a concussion after his roughing the passer?
So bad. It was so bad. That was ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
It was. I was like, I couldn't believe it.
That was well inserted, Ty. I applaud you for that. I was not ready for that.
And of course, my dad's a Bucs fan now because he's lived in Tampa for 3 years, and I called him. So I called him right away, and I was like, "Oh wow, nice to get bailed out by that roughing the passer." And he goes, "That's textbook. He rolled it." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Are you that like my dad's like an old school football guy who like freaks out about every time like when they like tap a quarterback's helmet and they throw the roughing the passer flag." And I'm like, the man made a tackle. Like he like set Brady down so gently. I was like, could not believe it.
We're not going to talk about Tom Brady trying to kick Grady Jarrett on his way up either.
Exactly. Oh, it was just such a bad call.
Tom Brady doesn't have a concussion, but
no, he does not. But I here's the referee that was that made the call, but the crew of that game, excuse the voice crack, was the same crew that officiated the Raider Bengal game last year in the playoffs, where there was a whistle that blew the ball dead.
Oh,
That was completely clean for the Raiders.
yikes.
The same crew. So this crew is notorious for making some very poor judgment calls and judgments.
Yes.
I should have added this in the Panthers news earlier. The Buffalo Bills have reached out to the Carolina Panthers about the availability of Christian McCaffrey. What's new? And that's per Michael Balco Jr. on Twitter. What's new? Like, I don't know. It feels like they've been calling for the past 2 years on Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
Like, the Bills, when will the Bills figure out they need to just get a stud running back in the draft and not just keep drafting like gadget guys? Like when are we going to figure that out? They had an opportunity to draft Breece Hall. You want to know who they didn't draft? Breece Hall. Decided to wait on James Cook instead. Like when is Buffalo going to figure it out? This is a stupid piece of news. I can't believe we're putting this in here. I mean, like, it's important. It's important because it's the number one player in fantasy football, and we have to talk about it. But, like, yeah, what's new? They've been doing this for 2 years.
Yeah, I don't know.
This makes me upset. I'm sorry.
I really hope he doesn't get traded. Like, if they do advance, I just think it'd be so bad for McCaffrey. Play with a quarterback like Allen. Like, Allen runs the ball. He's not gonna. If he has the choice between running somebody over or dumping it off to McCaffrey, he's gonna run the ball. So.
Tom Pelissero literally tweeted out like 5 minutes ago, the Panthers haven't had trade talks about Christian McCaffrey with the Bills or any other team this season per sources. All right, so
stupid. Everybody's lying. Everybody always lies about McCaffrey. Stop lying. It's not. I don't want to talk about this crap because it never happens. Nobody cares.
Ridiculous.
Oh my goodness. That was News and Notes brought to you by your friends over at Sleeper, the number one fantasy football platform in the world. We're hosting all of our leagues over there every single year. Multiple leagues on there. Join over 4 million people on the fastest growing fantasy platform in the world by clicking on the link in the description of the audio podcast or YouTube video you are watching right now. All right, fellas, let's recap week 5 here. Let's talk about the players that absolutely blew us away this week. The booms of week 4. We'll start with the running back position. We preached this from the beginning of the season. You don't panic on your studs unless if they truly give you a reason to panic after the first 3 weeks. Austin Eckler gave you very little reason to panic after the first 3 weeks. His efficiency was down, but his work in the receiving game was still sky high, and that's what you drafted him for. 36 fantasy points this week, finished as the running back 2 on the week. He now has back-to-back 35-plus point. Goodness, back-to-back 35-point games. That was a lot to get out. 16 attempts for 173 yards. There's that efficiency. Scored a touchdown on the ground, 4 receptions on 4 targets for 26 yards and a touchdown. Austin Eckler is good at football. He's also good for fantasy football. Hashtag analysis.
There's nothing more you can say. I mean, you draft him as a top 6 guy. He's going to finish as a top 6 guy. He's on the best offense in the league and can do everything. I don't know what more you can ask for.
Yep. Yep. We don't need to add anything there. I mean, this is what you draft him to be. He's a running back. He's probably the running back 2 on the season now. He was a running back 3 going into this week, which is where he was being drafted as a running back 3. And people are like, you only had 1 good game, though. Running back scoring has been down in general. Okay, so we need to put that into context first. But I'm sorry, Austin Eckler is going to do this at least 2 more times this year and just putting up incredible games.
Eckler is currently the RB1 on the year so far.
What?
Don't panic on your studs unless if they give you a reason to panic after the first 3 weeks.
Ridiculous.
Leonard Fournette, man, he put on a show on Sunday. Are we sure we shouldn't put him in wide receivers? Genuine question. 11 targets, 10 receptions on those 11 targets for 83 yards and a touchdown. Oh, and he also had 14 carries for 56 and a tutty as well. And Rachaad White was still involved. Is this just like Leonard Fournette just picked a matchup against Atlanta and just exploited it? Like, is he a running back 1 going forward?
He has to be. I mean, I've had him as kind of as my running back 1 all year. Or not the running back 1, but a running back 1.
Flirting with that territory, yeah.
Yeah, he's 3rd in targets behind Christian McCaffrey and Austin Eckler, tied with
As you
J.D.
expect him to
McKissick.
be. Yeah.
I mean, Brady's like when Brady's doing well, he checks the ball down a ton, and Fournette's proven that he can do stuff with the ball in his hands. They're going to be in the red zone a lot. I mean, there's just not much not to like about Leonard Fournette moving forward.
Yeah, he's in, again, when you have Tom Brady as your quarterback, check down king, right? All of a sudden, Leonard Fournette is the running back 1 and playing the James White role for Tom Brady. What more can you ask for? Well, more, you can't ask for much more. So I think you can expect more big games from Lenny down the road. We're certainly not saying he's going to give you a running back 1 36 fantasy point weeks every single week, but yeah, I think you have to consider him in the running back 1 territory from here on out.
Yeah, 100%.
Breece Hall. I love Breece Hall. I love Breece Hall so much. 28 fantasy points on the week. He was a running back 3 overall. I mean, look, here's the thing. 2 receptions for 100 yards. A Gabe Davis type of week, right? 50 yards a reception. We're not promising you that. But here's what is promising. 97 rushing yards on 18 totes and a touchdown. I love that. Like, that is music to my ears. Like, you get that 16 fantasy points alone from Breece like that, that's music to my ears, right? I am in love with that. And the receptions, like, he may not have 2 for 100 every single week, but I'll tell you what, he'll probably have 4 for 30.
Yeah.
That gets you another 7. You get that same rushing volume and efficiency. He's at 20 plus on the week, right? Like, Breece Hall is showing you why he was the number 1 the number 1 running back taken in the NFL draft this past year. And he's reminding you that he is a special talent. Like, we weren't just hyping up Breece as a generational talent because, we need to do that to whoever's the number 1 running back in this class. Like, Breece showing flashes of why he is special. And he'll be incredible fantasy asset for years to come.
Yeah. You know who's 5th in running back targets right now?
Yeah,
Breece Hall.
It's
29.
incredible.
One behind Leonard Fournette. He was also tackled at the 1 twice. Just crazy.
Yeah. So he could have had 2 touchdowns. 2 more touchdowns on top of that.
And I really need that in our dynasty. Like, me and Ty are facing off this week. It's been a nail biter. And so, man, those 2 are...
Bye, Tyler. Thanks for joining us for 20 minutes here. 25 minutes.
Just for those of you who are wondering, I'm currently beating Ty by 60. I am the highest scorer in our league right now, and I still have Devontae Adams and Darren Waller left.
Well, stop it, okay? I've got Matthew Wright, the kicker for the Chiefs, left, okay? It's going to be closer to 50 than it is to anything else, okay? So just sheesh.
60
Matthew
burger
Wright.
coming from Matthew Wright. I'm feeling it in my bones. 28 extra points tonight. 28 field goals.
Just saying.
A few honorable mentions. Look, a lot of studs on this list. Derrick Henry, you expect him to be good. Hey, we finally got our big game from Dalvin Cook. It was there the whole time. The writing was on the wall. He's had to find the end zone, and he found it twice, and he paid off. Like that. The volume has always been there for Dalvin Cook. Anybody who is panicking on Dalvin, the volume is there. There was no reason to panic. You just had to wait until he found pay dirt, and he did twice. He paid dividends.
Literally said it. When I said buy low on Dalvin Cook, what's the reason why he's not been doing great so far? It's touchdowns. Touchdowns will come, and guess what? Ba-boom.
I mean, he's 7th in attempts right now. Yeah,
he's getting the volume.
The volume's there. There's nothing more you can say.
You have to look at the full context and not just look at fantasy points. You have to look at the volume of players getting and why they aren't capitalizing, why they aren't putting up. I think everybody, when you draft a running back in the first round, you just want 20 plus every week, and you're not going to get 20 plus every single week. It's just the reality. But Dalvin Cook could have had close to 20 in at least 3 out of his 4 matchups had he just found the end zone.
Yeah.
And he did twice, so he's paying off now, right? Christian McCaffrey, 23 fantasy points on the week. Oh, I skipped over Nick Chubb. I think I didn't do that intentionally, even though we're like one of the more anti-Nick Chubb groups out there. I'm sorry. I'm going to say it. I'm sorry. I 4 out of 5 games with 100+ rushing yards this year.
Yep.
I like semi-decent schedule to open the season. It's been some pretty favorable matchups. I'm not trying to make excuses, but just like I didn't expect it to be this good. I didn't expect Kareem Hunt to not be as limiting of a factor.
Yeah.
And like Amari Cooper. So here's the thing. Like the Browns have just been, for fantasy on offense, they've just been really, really good. Okay, you have 2 fantasy relevant pass catchers, David Njoku, Amari Cooper. You have 2, I guess Kareem Hunt isn't as relevant as we anticipated he would be. Like Nick Chubb is crushing it. Like I thought this offense would just kind of be left for dead with Jacoby Brissett. And he's doing his job while maintaining Amari Cooper and David Njoku and giving Nick Chubb running back 1 overall value. Like I did not expect this offense to be able to support all of that.
I mean, Kareem Hunt's still running back 17. He's still top 25 in running back touches on the year.
Is he really?
Yeah, I mean, Kareem Hunt has 57 attempts. He's averaging 11 attempts a game. He's averaging three targets a game. Like it's not like Kareem Hunt's not doing anything. I mean, the man's averaging 14 touches a game, and Nick Chubb is still second rushing running back attempts. He's still averaging 6 yards a carry. It's just like that. And that's what it came down to: is the Browns committed to the run way more than we thought they would. You know, like we knew they were going to be committed to the run, but they are so like we're going to run the ball every single play, and there's nothing you can do about it. And Nick Chubb we knew Nick Chubb was this good. Like we've never debated that whether he's a top 3 running back in the NFL or not. It was just we didn't think fantasy production would be there. He only has 9 targets on the year and is the running back 2 right now. That's ridiculous.
That's Jonathan Taylor-esque.
Yeah.
Oh, Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry-esque.
Derrick Henry has 5 more targets than him and 90 more receiving yards.
That's like
I don't know.
Like, I'm not saying Nick Chubb's going to come back down to earth. Like I think he could keep this pace up.
Oh, 100%.
I just can't believe it. It's just wild. It really is wild. We talked about Christian McCaffrey. Hey, welcome back, Alvin Kamara, 23 fantasy points. Tevin Coleman, 22. You taking anything away from his performance? Just yes or no? I'm not.
No, I mean he had a receiving touchdown that was like 20 yards, and that's half his points right there. I wouldn't go get him if that's what we're asking. No.
I think he's stashable. I think he's stashable. I'm not going to get him and treating him like a starter because Jeff Wilson had himself a decent day too. But I think it's worth paying attention to at least.
Yeah.
And then Dameon Pierce. Hey, we love Dameon Pierce. 20 fantasy points on the week with a big boy run. That man, like who put Derrick Henry out on the field? Like 17 broken tackles in Sunday's game. That's the most recorded in a single game.
He looked really good. There's nothing more I'm going to put on.
He's incredible. I know we were in on Dameon Pierce from the get-go. I know we were like hyping up Dameon Pierce like you have to go get him in your dynasty drafts. I don't think we expected him to be this good though.
Mm-mm.
Let's move on to wide receiver booms for the week. Let's talk about our guy first. I mean, we already talked about Gabe Davis. I already gave the analysis on Gabe Davis. So sorry, we're not talking about our guy first, but I saw the other name on this list, and I think I just want to say we've already talked about Gabe Davis. 6 targets, 3 receptions, just a 50 yards of reception, right? Like not sustainable, but he has to be mentioned. We think he's going to come back down to earth, but big week for Gabe Davis. Let's move on to Justin Jefferson, though. 13 targets, 12 receptions, 154 yards. Oh, and he also completed a pass for 23 yards as well. I mean, Justin Jefferson is really good at football. He's really fun to watch. And when Kirk is just absolutely on fire, like, watch out. Like, how much more can we say on Justin Jefferson? He's really good at football.
I was thinking about this the other day. He should be seeing more and more double teams as the year goes on. That's a sign of people actually saying that, like, oh no, Justin Jefferson is not only the main weapon on the Vikings, but like he's like a top 2 wide receiver in the league, and he ain't 2. Like it's a compliment in some ways, and it's frustrating in fantasy, right? Because rarely do you see anyone ever produce against double coverage and stuff, but still, like, NFL is noticing that Justin Jefferson is coming around, and if you took him as a wide receiver 1, he's slowly paying dividends.
I don't think it's going to matter because Kevin O'Connell is doing exactly what they did last year with Cooper Kupp. The amount of movement Justin Jefferson on the field, every single person in that first half knew the ball was going to Justin Jefferson. He had like 6 routes where there was no other read, where it was either a sack or Justin Jefferson gets the ball. and Jefferson was wide open every single time. And I just heard someone today, like, this is what's frustrating about what Zach Taylor's doing with Jamar Chase. It's because Jamar Chase is facing the same kind of coverages as Justin Jefferson. But Kevin O'Connell's moving Jefferson around, scheming him open, and just letting him work. And if you aren't going to do that with Chase, like, he's going to get doubled a ton. So
can we check can we check Justin Jefferson's yards after the catch this year?
That's got to be ridiculous.
Because that's the thing. Teams are playing cover 2. Teams are playing cover 2 to prevent Jamar Chase from beating them over the top. And not just Jamar Chase, but most players, right? Like, Justin Jefferson has to be ridiculous in yards after the catch, because you look at it and he's only 10 yards downfield. He's just running crossing routes or sitting underneath and then turning around and, oh wait, nobody's within 4.5 yards of me. Do we have that number quick?
He has 163 yards after contact. After
I want to catch. Sorry, I think I said
after
contact.
The catch. Yeah.
263
yards. He's tied for 7th.
219 is the updated.
Okay. So that's not as high as I
5.
expected. It seems like he just gets the ball underneath and then he just racks up all these yards afterwards. Like, it's not even Kirk is hitting him on the deep ball. Constantly.
He's second for wide receivers. He's behind Fournette.
There it is.
Dallas Goedert is second with 272.
Yeah, he's incredible.
Austin Eckler at 1, and then obviously Cooper Kupp at 3. And that 75-yard touchdown definitely helped Kupp this week, because that was 60 yards of him running it right down the field.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah,
so Jefferson number 2 amongst wide receivers. Yeah, that's a number I was expecting. Yeah. Which is what you're getting. Some honorable mentions here. Hey, Tyler Lockett, dude. Tyler Lockett. Is he sneaky steal of the draft this year? I think he has to be. Like, with his last 3 weeks, double-digit fantasy points the last 3 weeks. And
it just doesn't go away.
Just 10, 11. 15 plus the past 3 weeks, if I'm not mistaken.
I mean, he's the same guy like this last week, a 35 and 40-yard receiving touchdown, right? I mean, that's most of his points this last week. But that's what he can do. And if they're gonna let Geno huck the ball like they have the last couple of weeks, I mean, this could definitely be a lot more in store for Tyler Lockett.
Yeah. I didn't expect this, because Geno Smith is not Russ, but Geno Smith greater sign Russell Wilson this year. Like, if you've watched any of those games, I don't know how you can say otherwise. Did you see that throw Geno made too? Noah Fant on the side. I couldn't believe it.
That's a Mahomes type throw.
100%.
We can't ignore the Seahawks anymore. We just can't. We can't ignore the Seahawks anymore. Cooper Kupp, obviously a big week there. Diami Brown, leading wide receiver for the Washington Commanders this week.
Little Gabe Davis-esque.
Yeah, very Gabe. Yeah, he did his best Gabe Davis impression this week. 2 receptions, over 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. Not a waiver ad in my mind. Again, not. I'm not chasing that production. That's just fool's gold waiting to happen. Stephon Diggs with 24. You're starting him. Jacoby Myers with Bailey Zappi at quarterback. You think? I mean, look. Jacoby Myers, 11 fantasy points week 1, 18 in week 2. He didn't play the last 2 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. Back this week with 24. Like, we got to pay attention to Jacoby Myers. Like the fact that he put up 18 in week 2, double-digit fantasy points every week. And this guy was going 14th, 15th round of your fantasy drafts. Maybe not that late, but like he's probably your wide receiver 5 if you even drafted him. We're going to add something, Ty?
Oh, he's the wide receiver 8 in points per game right now for wide receivers.
Let's pay attention there. Like, Devontae Parker is no longer he had two nice games. Like, I don't think this offense wants to prioritize the deep ball. Like, you look at his deep metric stats and they're incredible. Like, Devontae Parker's deep ball stats are off the charts. Like, he's very clearly the field stretcher. Jacoby Myers is a safety valve, and Bill, he knows Devontae Parker isn't Randy Moss. So yeah, Jacoby Myers, if he's not rostered in your league, you better go make sure he's rostered on your team right now.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to talk about Mac Jones, he probably is the definition of a game manager right now. And so New England's going to build their game by playing good defense, running the ball, and throwing it underneath. And that's what they're going to do. They're not going to be taking deep shots a lot. And so, yeah, I think he's probably he's going to be a flex conversation for the rest of the season.
Yeah, most definitely. Mike Williams, 23 fantasy points on the week. Look, he didn't score a touchdown, but when you get 10 receptions for 130 yards, this is what's going to happen. This is why we were in on Mike Will. Like he can with or without Keenan Allen, he can command this type of volume.
Yep.
He's going to give you those 4-point weeks. It's inevitable. But he gives you these weeks and you feel phenomenal about drafting him then. Like I love him as my wide receiver too on all the teams I have him on. I really do. I love having him as my wide receiver too. Another guy I like having as my wide receiver too, Marquise Brown, 22 fantasy points on the week. How much of this, okay, real talk, we're getting closer to DeAndre Hopkins coming back. He's eligible to come back week 8. Arizona has a bye in there. How much of this changes when D-Hop gets back? I mean, he's commanding a ton of volume right now. Like a ton. 3 games straight of 20-plus fantasy points. How much of that changes with D-Hop?
I think a little, but I don't think it's enough where like I'm trying to move him, like trying to just get rid of him, panic selling on him with D-Hop coming back, because they're going to play very different roles. Like D-Hop's going to be the red zone threat. He's going to be, we need to get a third down, we're throwing to him. But Marquise Brown's going to get volume. They just don't have other receivers who can command volume outside of him, D-Hop, and then sometimes Zach Ertz.
Dare I say, like, Hollywood Brown could be even better when D-Hop comes back because of the attention that D-Hop is going to draw. That means Marquise Brown can just, I mean, he can take the top off of defense. We know that. But he's also shown that he can do anything else all over the field, right? So if he's getting this hot and he's building this kind of trust and rapport with Kyler that, like, we already knew about because of college, but it seems like it's already taken a step forward in just, 4 or 5 games. I don't see why it can't continue, and I don't see why it can't get better when D-Hop gets back.
No, I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, if you're a Hollywood Brown manager, you're not selling. Frankly, you're not going out to buy Hollywood. You're not buying high on him, mostly because he's stupid expensive right now. And also, like, we could see a decrease when D-Hop gets back, but like, we just don't know. Like if you have Hollywood, you're feeling good and you're just holding tight because things could get, he could stay just as relevant. But I mean, wide receiver, he's a top 10 wide receiver for sure. He was a wide receiver 7 going into this week, I believe. I'm not sure where he's at after. He is top 5 now. Yep. I didn't want to say top 5. I didn't want to assume because I knew he was at 7. But yeah, we're holding on him for now.
Yep.
Let's breeze through the quarterbacks here. I mean, most of these guys we don't have much to talk about. Josh Allen, quarterback 1 overall this week. What's new?
Very good.
Yep, he is good. He's really good at football, and he's really good for your fantasy team. Jalen Hurts, hey, what's new? Another top 3 finish. 28 fantasy points on the week. 15 rushing attempts this week, though. How many is he at? Cameron, you said this before we hopped on.
Back-to-back weeks of 15 rushing attempts.
Like that's notable, and he's taking it in around the goal line. 2 rushing touchdowns on the day. Really wished one of those would have gone to Miles Sanders. That would have helped the parlays for the day.
Yeah, 14 rush attempts a game is what he's averaging right now.
That's incredible. Yeah, and you knew you were going to get rushing upside with Hurts, but not 14 a game. That's incredible. I can't believe Geno Smith is a top 3 quarterback again.
It's time to have that conversation. Is he a start? Is he a start moving forward? Because this Saints defense is supposed to be good. Geno or Russ?
Oh crap, Geno.
There's your question.
I hit stop. I can't. I can't have this conversation. I'm disgusted.
Josh Allen or Geno Smith.
That's where we're at. I'm disgusted we have to have this conversation. I'm disgusted with the Denver Broncos. Ty, I went on this rant on the Stardom Saturday episode. Like, how bad do you have to be to have Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, Albert Okwuegbunam showed flashes with Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater, with Javonte Williams and Melvin Gore? Like, how bad do you have to be?
He's terrible. Russ is awful.
His misread to KJ Hamler in the red zone epitomized everything this season. Right? His head did not move. He tracked Cortland Sutton the whole way.
Stayed right here.
And his head literally followed the route Sutton was running as KJ Hamler was right behind him, wide open.
You want to hear the best stat on Russ? 4 touchdowns, 3 picks. That's how much he has this season. He has 1,200 yards and only 4 touchdowns. That sums it up.
Is Nathaniel Hackett next? Real talk.
He's got to be on the block.
He's the next
Ty,
Urban Meyer if they finish below 500.
Ty, you said it best. The only reason they brought in Hackett was to try and get Rodgers. They don't have Rodgers, and Russell Wilson is not Aaron Rodgers. So,
I'll give credit where it's due. This came from Paul Allen, voice of the Vikings, over on KFAN, the radio show here in Minnesota. But he's like, just thinking about this. Obviously, it's Hackett and Rodgers connection, right? But more so when you look at the style of play that both these quarterbacks have between Russ and Rodgers. Rodgers calls the game from under center. He calls it from the line of scrimmage. He looks at a defense and says, oh, they are shifted to the right. Let me check to a run and we'll run it out to the left, right? Like that's the kind of game, that's the kind of quarterback that Rodgers is. Russell Wilson is not that kind of quarterback. He is an improviser. He just takes a play, and if a play breaks down, that's when he does something. So in some ways, it feels like Hackett is trying to put Russ into a system, and Russ is overthinking. That's where we see all this. I mean, I'm pretty sure Denver leads the league in 3 and outs.
yikes.
They lead the league, and I think
they lead the league in sucking. Okay. I'm going to just put it bluntly. I don't want to cut you off, but I'm just disgusted with the Denver Broncos. Okay?
Clip it.
Clip it.
They just do. I get sick to my stomach talking about them. How can you? They have no reason to be this bad. We're moving on. Sorry. I don't want to dig into it. They just lead the league at just being bad, okay?
Geno
and
Smith
also, we have a
Russ
lot
Wilson.
to get through in the next 10 minutes, so I just kind of wanted to move us on. Kirk Cousins, Carson Wentz, Tom Brady. Honorable mentions there. Carson Wentz favorable matchup. Kirk Cousins. Look, he's good at home. He's really good under US Bank Stadium or in US Bank Stadium. And Tom Brady played the Falcons. You expect him to just torch them. You expect him to do that. Tight end booms on the week. All right. We need to have a talk. I know I said I wanted to cruise, but we need to stop and talk. Taysom Hill, tight end 1 on the week. We should have put him in the running backs, really, because he didn't catch a single ball in this game. 9 attempts for 112 yards. 3 touchdowns. Threw a passing touchdown as well for 22 yards. What is Taysom Hill?
He is on the season 1 target, 1 reception, 2 yards, and the tight end 7.
What
He's
is
not a
Taysom
tight
Hill?
end. He's if you want a shot in the dark every single week, he's a shot in the dark. But that's about it.
I said so. I don't want to hype myself up, but I was on live stream with Fantasy Pros Sunday morning before kickoff, and I actually had quite a few Taysom questions of like K. Dotton or Taysom Hill, Jesse Bates, since Logan Thomas for the Washington Commanders was missing the game, like Jesse Bates or Taysom Hill. And I said, give me the guy who has goal line packages, because a lot of those guys are like, neither are going to get volume. But there is one of those guys who's going to get goal line packages. Now, did I expect 3 rushing touchdowns and a 60-yard scamper? No, not at all. But a rushing touchdown, sure, I could see him. But this is like, this isn't reliable. But he has to be on. You have to stash him. Do you not?
You have to.
Yeah, someone's got to
to.
have him.
You have to. You have to stash him, because in a pinch that you don't have a Kyle Pitts, that George Kittle is on a bye or gets injured again, that Darren Waller decides to miss a few games, right? Like we've seen the position be volatile enough where having a guy like Taysom Hill could literally save you your week, which he did this week if you started him.
Yeah.
He needs to be rostered in all leagues.
Yeah.
Mark Andrews was a. Go ahead.
Sorry. I was just going to say, the only thing that scares me is, other than this week, on the season, he has 1 catch, 2 yards, 11 rushes, 116 yards, and 2 touchdowns, which comes out to like 3 points a week. So
Right.
That's the only other thing that scares me.
I mean, Taysom Hill is touchdown dependent. Okay. He's rushing touchdown dependent. But the difference between us saying that Dawson Knox is touchdown dependent versus Taysom Hill being touchdown dependent is that Taysom Hill is backing it up currently. Dawson Knox was very up and down in his production. I mean, Taysom Hill's the same way, but what I'm trying to explain is that Taysom Hill is backing up the touchdown production, right? With his touches, he is doing well with his touches. Dawson Knox up and down with his volume. That goes back to last year, okay? That's why this is a more optimistic touchdown dependent when we talk Taysom Hill compared to some of the other players who are touchdown dependent.
And it's all schemed to work probably 98% of the time for Taysom Hill. For Dawson Knox, it is 50-50. 50% of the time you get an explosion, 50% of the time you get a dud, and you don't know when each is coming.
Yep.
And it's probably less than 50% of the time, if we're being perfectly honest. So, yes, 100% agree. Mark Andrews was a tight end 2 on the week. Look, you expect a lot out of him. 89 yards on 8 receptions, 10 targets, and a touchdown. This is what you expect from Mark Andrews. Honorable mentions, we have Hayden Hurst scored a touchdown this week, 17 fantasy points. David Njoku had 15. He's a tight end 5 on the week. I think he's a legit viable option now.
Yep.
I think he's a viable option. And then Evan Ingram, tight end 6. Given you the inconsistency, the pass catchers have just been all over the place for Jacksonville the past 2 weeks. I'm not buying any stock in Evan Ingram currently.
Yeah.
All right, in typical fashion, we're going to wrap out the episode with our bus and do it super quickly because we spent a lot of time talking about the good because we are positive folk. Actually, that's false. We spent how long? I'm just kidding. How long talking about that team?
They weren't even in the boobs.
No.
Thanks, Gino.
Najee Harris, running back bus. Let's start there. 6.6 fantasy points. 20 rushing yards on 11 attempts, 3 receptions, 4 targets, 16 yards. Here's his next 5 matchups. Tampa Bay, Miami, who did get torched on the ground by Breece Hall this week, but I don't think that's a given for Najee. Philadelphia, New Orleans, Cincinnati. Oof. What do you can't trade. You can trade Najee. But what are you going to get for him? A pack of Pop-Tarts?
You gotta be with someone who's still holding name value. That's for sure.
And would you trade Najee Harris for DJ Moore?
Ty, would you trade Najee Harris for DJ Moore in a dynasty league?
Not me going on to sleeper right now and over to the league where I have Najee Harris and Cam as DJ Moore to send a trade offer. No, I would never. No.
I would strongly consider in dynasty, but redraft, man, you have to be expecting 10 points or under for the rest of the year unless he scores a touchdown, and this team is not in the red zone a lot.
And you have Kenny Pickett, goal line thief.
He's the guy that when we say unless they've given you a reason to panic on your studs, then you should panic.
Yes. Najee is the reason to panic.
Fully panicked on Najee right now. I'm 10 out of 10 worried.
I was 9 last week, and I'm 12 out of 10 this week. I mean, it's not going to get better. This might not be the worst we see, unfortunately.
1.8 yards per carry this last week.
It's horrendous. It's horrendous.
He is barely above 3 on the season.
If you're a Najee manager, here's what you can do, or here's what you should do. Just pray that the Steelers find a new offensive coordinator. That's all you can do. Can't trade him because you're not going to get anything worthwhile back. You can't cut him because it's Najee Harris. Just pray for a new offensive coordinator.
Or if Philadelphia's offensive line just decides to teleport to Pittsburgh for the rest of the season. That'd be cool too.
Yeah, he needs a miracle. I mean, but yeah, you know what? Honestly, you probably do have to hold him for these 5 games and just go. And you have to start considering benching Najee Harris and then just hope it gets better after the schedule kind of lets up a little.
Najee Harris becomes a sick candidate for spot starters, if you ask me. Normally I'm like spot start him in your flex, but Najee has to be a consideration for guys like Ramondre who have great matchups coming up. For all these other guys who are probably more spot starts than they are every week starts. You know what I mean?
It's ridiculous. Jeez. Yeah,
it's bad. Here's a guy that I do have questions on if we should panic on. James Robinson. Yikes. Great matchup with Houston. Musters 5.9 fantasy points, running back 46 on the week. Only 2.7 yards per carry. 2 receptions, 2 targets for 12 yards, but like he split carries with Travis Etienne in what should have been a cake matchup for him. Back-to-back weeks of duds for James Robinson.
Yeah.
Are we worried? Are we like, is this just a weird 2 weeks for the Jaguars? Like, what in the world do we make of this?
I'm giving that one to you, Ty. I don't want to answer.
I really don't either, because I don't have a strong. If you could get something for James Robinson still, I think I would. But I don't think it's going to be what you could have gotten last week for James Robinson.
He has played. So starting back in week 2, I see you, Cameron, and I'm going to wait because I'm about to monologue. How dare you interrupt my monologue on James Robinson?
Better make it quick. We got a lot to get through it.
Yeah, I know. James Robinson played in 63% of snaps week 2, 58% in week 3, 47 week 4, 40% on Sunday. He has gone downhill in snap counts. Travis Etienne, on the other hand, has gone 37%, 43%, 51%, 53%. So neither running back is really seeing the field like a ton. But Etienne is slowly. I mean, it's also probably game script a little bit, because Etienne is kind of coming around on the pass catching a little bit compared to James Robinson. So best way to put it, I think if you got James Robinson, capitalize now, because if it's more of this limbo, or if it's this kind of every other kind of game performance between the two,
Right.
Clarifying. I don't give yourself that kind of headache, and avoid that backfield at all costs pretty much going forward until we see something that's fairly concrete.
It feels like Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams from last year, but they're not as committed to the run.
Sure. That makes sense. I was going to say, it feels like this is what we were expecting at the beginning of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Until James Robinson's like, oh my gosh, he's incredible. He beat his Achilles, which he did.
Mm-hmm.
But now we're starting to see what we were afraid of. What would be coming for Travis Etienne. But I think it's just coming to fruition now. A.J. Dillon, 3.4 fantasy points. Packers are a bunch of knuckleheads for giving up that game on Sunday and abandoning the run. That's my analysis on A.J. Dillon.
Yep.
I know he hasn't been great, but man, you have got to sit tight on A.J. Dillon. There's just been too many wonky things going on with the Packers to just ship him out, to give up on him right now.
I mean, the guy averaged almost 6 yards a carry, and for whatever reason, he got literally
just
nothing.
Game scripted away for no reason in a favorable game script.
Yeah, makes no sense.
Cam Akers, time to hit the waiver wire.
I'd hold on to him, but I'm not trading for him. Unless there's someone crazy on the waiver wire, I'd hold him. But man, you're not starting him, that's for sure.
3.4 fantasy points, running back 59 on the week, 13 attempts, 33 yards. The efficiency isn't even there. They're going back and forth on the trades right now. I feel so left out. So I'm going to carry on and talk about a guy who, bye-bye, Chase Edmonds. Cut him immediately. Cut him. One rushing attempt to 1 yard. Snap counts have just been obliterated by Raheem Mostert.
Yeah. I
most confusing signing so far this offseason.
Mm-hmm.
Wide receiver bus. All right, we got a lot to get through here. Keenan, oh goodness, he didn't play. T. Higgins. Skunked. What a tease.
Did get injured at least. So, not at least, but
right, but
yeah.
He was held out in the second half. Yes. He re-aggravated that ankle. But man, this was supposed to be his game. His big game, and didn't even get targeted. Thanks for not leaving me out, Tyler. As I get I didn't even look at it. I'm still looking at my notes. Jalen Waddle, wide receiver 71 on the week, 3 receptions, 3 targets, 23 yards.
They had whatever his name was at quarterback.
Skylar Thompson out of Kansas State.
That's about what you chalk that up to. Amon-Ra play the New England Patriots. I think that's enough to be said there. 5.8 fantasy points, wide receiver 67 on the week, only 18 receiving yards. So happens when you go up against Bill Belichick and he takes away your best weapon.
Yep.
He schemes for that.
That's what he does.
Brandon Cooks, we thought he was back. Yikes. 4 receptions for 20 yards. Davis Mills, step it up, man. We all thought Davis Mills was going to be sneaky good this year, but just not the case whatsoever. Has not been good. His looked pretty bad, actually.
Mm-hmm.
A.J. Brown, 6.2 fantasy points, 3 receptions, 32 yards on 7 targets. Devonta Smith and Dallas Goedert were the main show.
Yeah.
Drake London, honorable mentions here. Drake London had only 7.5 fantasy points against Tampa, though. I told people to tamper their expectations, and hopefully you did. Jerry Jeudy in that terrible, absolutely horrid. I never want to watch them. We have to watch them on primetime again.
It's ridiculous.
I said that on Saturday, but I need to reiterate. I'm not turning on Monday Night Football next week. Jerry Jeudy only with 8.3. CeeDee Lamb, DJ Moore, Michael Pittman all only had 10 fantasy points, which you're not upset with, but outside of the top 35 on the week.
Mm-hmm.
Quarterback busts on the week. I'm upset because I'm looking at a name that I don't want to talk about. Russell Wilson busted again this week. We're moving on to Matt Stafford. What's new?
Yep.
2 things you can count on. Death, taxes, and Russell Wilson just being miserable this year. I just...
Clip that.
Matt Stafford. Yep. I'm moving on. I don't want to talk about the Broncos anymore. Matt Stafford, 28-42 for 308. Only a touchdown and an interception, though. Quarterback 21 on the week. You got to find another option than Matt Stafford at this point. You got to find another option. It is not good for this Rams. He has no time to throw the football.
No.
That's why Allen Robinson isn't involved, because Allen Robinson he doesn't create separation. Okay. So, and he never has in his career. You want to know who else doesn't create separation? Terry McLaurin. Half of these, these elite tight ends don't create a ton of separation, but yet here they are racking up fantasy points. That's not the issue. Separation is not the issue. It is this offensive line. And if he's not open, Stafford doesn't have time to even give him a contested, accurate ball.
Yeah. 7 of Stafford's 11 points came on that one Cooper Kupp touchdown where Kupp took to the house. That should tell you pretty much how it's been in Los Angeles.
Trevor Lawrence, quarterback 19 on the week, only 12.3 fantasy points against Houston. Just a disgusting game there. And then Jared Goff, who was good past few weeks, quarterback 27 on the week, only 6.9 fantasy points. When your number one option, when you're number 1 and 2, TJ Hawkinson, terrible game this week as well. When they get taken away from you, not much you can really do for Jared Goff. All right, let's wrap it up with tight end busts here. We're keeping these short and sweet. TJ Hawkinson, I just brought his name up, only 1.6 fantasy points on the week. The Patriots have been pretty bad against tight ends this year. I called a Rob Tonyan touchdown back when the Packers played them. I believe that was only last week. I thought Hawk would score this week. I thought they'd get close enough to at least score a touchdown. Not even close. Didn't even come close to happening.
Shutout.
1 receptions on 4 targets for only 6 yards. TJ Hawkinson's going to be frustrating the rest of this year. I mean, you're looking at some other options in a handful of weeks anyways. You're already looking that way. Gerald Everett, yikes, against the Browns. Mike Will can have a day, but only him and Eckler are the only 2 that are allowed to have a good day. Herbert also, sneaky, not super great on Sunday. It wasn't awful, but 218 passing yards, I believe.
Yeah.
Less than Jacoby Brissett.
Less than Jacoby Brissett, who threw for 230.
Yeah, that's what happens when Eckler has almost 200 yards rushing.
Right. Why would they take the ball out of his hands? Everett went 1 for 2 yards. Pat Fryermuth obviously left the game with a concussion. Do we really put Mike Gesicki as an honorable mention for bust? Do we do that?
I just wanted to remind everyone that he's a bust.
That serves as a reminder, not a meaningful discussion or anything. It's just, hey, remember, you shouldn't roster this guy.
Yep.
He has 2 good weeks every year and then just fools everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Anything you 2 want to add before we wrap out the episode here?
Keep fighting the good fight.
If you want to become a league winner, join our chalkboard.
Down in the description of the audio podcast or YouTube video you are watching. 1,400 strong over there. I believe we're knocking on 1,400.
Yep.
1,400 strong over there. Bunch of league winners. Come hang out with us. We're answering your start sit questions, your waiver wire questions, your trade questions, everything of the sorts. 100% free. It's out for Android now, too. It wasn't out for Android users before, so if you're an Android user and you couldn't join before, now you can. You can download it over on the Android store, the Google App Store. that wraps out another episode of the Fantasy Football Fellas podcast. Make sure you are following us on the socials for even more content during the week. FF Fellas on Twitter, the FF Fellas on Instagram, Fantasy Football Fellas on Facebook, YouTube, and the good old TikTok. I'm at Lucas Wenzel on Twitter, Camlaw317 for Cameron, Tyler_Plath for Tyler. We're just three stooges being dudes. I can say that because we're all three here. We're three stooges being dudes, the Fantasy Football Fellas. We will see you. Well, Cameron and Tyler will see you on Thursday this week. I'll be back on Saturday. Take it easy, y'all. Hopefully you enjoyed Monday Night Football. We'll chat later this week. Deuces.
Deuces.
Deuces.